All right, so we do have here No Tail. How's it going, man?
Hey man, doing really good. I'm not sure if you wanted the video.
No, yeah, got it all set up, so that's cool.
Okay, nice. I'm doing great, thank you. Hope you're doing as good as well.
Yeah, after that game, why the heck not? That was some awesome stuff to watch there. It wasn't exactly your best IO game, but nevertheless, still a lot of cool things happened in it, and you were definitely a big part of that there. So hopefully, I can appreciate your 2-0 victory over Empire in this situation, especially with the two stand-ins there. What's it like playing with having two people that you're not as familiar with comparatively?
Dealing with one stand-in, like it's always more of a challenge. You never want to play with a stand-in, but when you have to, try to make the best of it. But I kind of had thoughts of how I wanted the lineup to be when playing with stand-ins compared to our normal lineup, but actually ended up going the exact opposite way that I wanted to initially draft, but it still worked out. So sometimes you just click together anyway, even though you haven't played too much with each other, and you get some good plays going, and you can actually pull home a victory, even though, yeah, as I said, you don't have too much experience playing with each other.
Yeah, so that was interesting how well it seemed that okay was able to mesh with what you guys had going on. Like his supportive play seemed kind of on point. Have you practiced with him before? I haven't seen you guys running with him before.
I played Pops with him before, at least with Era as well, but I can't remember if we ever used him as a stand-in. Maybe not, but not for more than one game at least then.
Sure.
But yeah, as for Cinderin, well, used him quite a bit, so
Yeah.
it's a bit more familiar with him. But yeah, yep.
Was there any concern that the Trilay wouldn't be able to perform as formidably based on the fact that there were two individuals standing in on the supportive roles that didn't have as much communication experience?
Yeah, that was exactly my point. That that I wanted to draft a double roam kind of lineup with three really strong solo heroes, and that our stand-ins would then be playing the roamers together, instead of having to end up in a try versus trident situation where positioning and communication and understanding each other means so much more. Because one mishap on a try versus try can mean that you can like that lane can completely spin out of control. So that definitely went into like was in my head when we went into the first game, but then it ended up actually being a tri lane, steady tri lane that we had, and I expected them to also contest in the first game, but then they Empire always runs these really weird kind of lanes that you never really expect, and then again like that happened in the first game. Would have never seen that coming, but it all worked out in the end, and synergy was there between the two stand-ins and Adrian.
Yeah, that obviously it did pay off there with your relatively good victory on the in the laning phase, and then kind of branching out into a really solid comeback phase. Because the early to mid transition, not the best. Obviously, they seem to be putting a lot of pressure there on your Wisp play specifically. They banned out the CK but didn't take off the IO. Do you feel that IO is one of those heroes that's getting more and more figured out and is more dangerous to draft as a result?
Um, I just don't know why you would go up against it. Like I think the hero is still ridiculous. You might think that you know how to play up against it, but every time we seem to get it, then like we learn from it all the time. But every time that we learn from it, we kind of always seem to realize how much more use the hero has. So instead of getting rid of the CK and then going up against the Wisp, thinking that the CK is like the strong thing in that combo, and if you pick the Wisp alone, that it's going to become weak. I don't know. I think the whole concept of yeah the relocate forces so many different plays and such a different kind of play style, but also forces a different kind of draft. I did do some mistakes playing the Wisp. I could have played it differently. They did do really well, like trying to go up against it, not to take anything away from them. But it's still you feel like you're going uphill all the time when you're playing against a Wisp, because you're forced to not make any mistakes. When you make those mistakes, it can be so costly, and that was also shown in that game, but also in most Wisp games we have. So yeah, as much as people are figuring out how to play against it, the more I feel like we're figuring out how to play with it as well.
Sure, sure. Yeah, so it's obviously that dynamic shift there. But let's say you got through the G1 qualifiers and you took the Wisp to Asia where they're not as familiar with it. Do you think it'd just be kind of a steamroll thing where they have to learn to ban it or get just all knocked over?
I've put a lot of thought into it, and I think it would be really fun to try. Um, I'm expecting them to get the same, like I'm expecting the same kind of result that we get here in Europe with CK
Mm,
Wisp, but you never know. Maybe they have the answer to to the whole laning phase and a good answer to the whole global relocate and stuff.
sure. No,
But yeah, you never know. They have really disciplined play. So if anyone were to pull that kind of stuff off, then it would be a team like IG.
so I mean, obviously that's still something to think about for the future. But for right now, just kind of focusing on what your guys' style is and what you guys are planning out for right now. Your transition into the mid role, kind of Hani has been picking up a lot of supportive type individuals, and you've been playing mid more and more recently. Is that something that's here to stay, or?
Um, it's something that we started doing to. I think it was mostly to get some more movement out of other supports, and I do think Honey has a better approach to the game when it comes to movement. Like you look at how the games have been in East Asia or in Asia in general, where there's two supports doing a lot of movement. Also LGD International, and maybe it would. I do think that we benefit more from having him on that role, but also think that, like personally, I feel more comfortable being in the mid role. I do think it's a lot easier. Uh, when you play in the support role, you just have a million options. Whereas when
Mhm.
you play the mid role, you have the first 5 minutes or 3 minutes where you're basically playing on routine, on last hits, on runes, on the timer, on you're basically just looking at the lane and working on mechanics. Whereas on support, you have to think out of the box all the time, and that's for me at least very hard. And I think Hani does a better job at it.
Interesting. So what do you think would make that mid situation more dynamic? Yeah, actually, here's a better question I'd like answered first. Comparing when the last time that you played mid competitively before this recent spree of it, would you say that it was higher pressure or lower pressure in a competitive environment than to what it is now? Do people put that pressure out on mid lane a lot more often, or?
It's about the same, I
Okay.
would say. Ever since HON, you have some games where people like to sit on middle. You have some games where they like to put the focus on their short lane, and that's not something you saw in HON. But in Dota, you see like a lot of pressure sometimes being applied to the off lane, especially like if you play a hero like Phantom Lancer, you might experience some extreme pressure on your
Mm-hmm.
short lane that you have to try and deal with. But yeah, about the mid thing, it's about the same. It depends from game to game.
Mm-hmm.
There is some like usually when you play up against good teams, there will be pressure on you one way or another. Like whether it's just people guarding runes, or actually going there to try and set up kills.
Sure. Now you were talking about how like the first 5 minutes seems to be pretty much same old, just a bit of a routine there. But you yourself specifically, as a mid player, do one thing that I don't think anybody else really has caught on with yet: either bottle first or quarrying up a courier. So you have two couriers on the board and immediately just start crowing back and forth, back and forth. Uh, what's your reasoning behind that? Just kind of go into a little diatribe on the double courier or the massive bottle crowing.
That originates all the way back from HON, like about 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, 3 years ago. I think I used to do it. Then it was removed in HON, and now that I'm playing Dota, like I actually used to do it in Dota as well 4 or 5 years ago. So this is something I know works. It's changed obviously with the new courier in Dota 2 that doesn't have the shield like
Oh,
invulnerability. You have to play. I also ended up killing my courier with a BKB on it in game one, but yeah, you have to be more careful with the courier. There's also a bounty on it, but at least you don't lose the items when it dies and stuff like that. So that's changed, but it's something I know works, and it's something that I know pays off in certain games. but sometimes you don't want to do it. Sometimes you can go halfway and just up, or I mean, just buy a ground chicken if you only need to ferry twice. It's gonna pay off more than buying a salve and a clarity, buying a ground chicken and ferrying once when you know that there's not gonna be a rune spawning. That's 150 gold spent. So I know it's something that works, and it's never bad to have a second chicken as well. Like I've almost every game there's been at one point where someone needs to use the chick because the other one is in use. So it pays off in more than just the whole bottle fairy thing.
Now, actually, haven't been able to keep track of gold as far as who picks up that animal courier and who upgrades it.
I buy both.
You do? Okay. You think that's a relevant contribution? You think that's something that it's worth it in its value?
Well, if I ever see the opportunity, like maybe a support gets first blood or something,
Sure.
then sure he could maybe help you out with it. But it will give you the advantage in the lane if you're playing. Like I would only buy it if it wouldn't give me a disadvantage. Like on certain heroes, you might not want to do it just because you desperately need to get something fast like boost or whatever. But it's something that you should stay. I feel like in the lane. You shouldn't be taking gold away from another lane to help you out at a later stage in the game, but it's always possible. Like, of course, sometimes it's gonna be better to have someone else do it than yourself. You can't say that it's never gonna be worth it, but yeah, for now I usually just do it both on my own. I also tend to buy a lot of wards.
Do you think it's viable to do on a hero that requires a big item like Blink Dagger early on? I mean, Batrider, he's not really as bottle reliant comparatively. But do you think that's something that it's kind of a mutually exclusive thing? You either want a big item or you want sustain on the lane to make sure you have a good time?
Well, the problem is that if you can't really see forward. You can't see that if there's a gank, not necessarily a gank attempt, but the other guy suddenly gets a really good rune and you suddenly fall short on regen. You might get that blink dagger later than if you would have bought the ground chicken earlier and started ferrying, and then buying it at the time when you wanted to be there. You might fall more behind, like 2 minutes, 1 minute on the blink dagger, than if you would have just bought it and started crowing. But sure, sometimes it might just be better trying to make sure that you can get the runes if you have control over both, getting regen that way, and then farming an instant blink dagger on a hero like Batrider. That's obviously going to be the case sometimes. But yeah, that's from game to game. It's impossible to say.
Mm-hmm. So, do you think it should be altered in any way? Do you think it provides a little bit too much stability to be able to bottle ferry back and forth? I know on Han they reduced it to 2 sips instead of 3 for if it gets returned via a courier. Do you think that would be a relevant course of action?
Well, they did that and then they removed it afterwards. They started off by doing the 2 to 3, and then I don't know if other people were doing it, but I kept doing it, and then eventually they removed it. But I don't know. Like, the problem in HON was that after it got removed, you could lose the mid lane so hard on RNG. Sure, you might say that it gives you too much stability, but if you lose the middle lane, because if there's no other way, like if you have to buy out other sources of regen, spend gold on that, you're gonna fall so far behind that the game can easily be like, not gonna say it's 100% decided, but it could be a lot more decided by 1 or 2 lucky runes. If it guesses on the rune, gets the right rune at the right time, or at the right place, then the middle lane might spiral out of control, and you can't hold on to it. You can't get something yourself, and that would mean that someone won the game or got a big lead in the game because of percentages. And I don't think that's such a good thing to have for a competitive sport, that you could, like, the random factors would matter so much. I know they matter in Dota, like, often, but increasing it, I don't think it's a good idea. I think that would be going the wrong way.
Okay, so you feel the point is to look at the fact that rune RNG would become extremely powerful and decisive in how different matchups. What do you think about the counter argument that it would promote more people to be more aggressive about covering runes? Maybe some of the good old 3 versus 3 on top of the rune spawn type things. Do you think that would be relevant enough as far as making it, still skill based in a way, because people have to dedicate time and effort to controlling it a little bit better, and of course obviously it's better for the viewers?
Well, the problem with that is that there's still going to be 1 rune for each team then, if you run a trial and short versus a trial and short. So you're always going to have the bottom rune as Radiant or top rune as Dire?
Mm-hmm.
And what if the rune spawns 5 times on top side as Dire, and you can't bottle crow as mid? Then it's still going to be the same situation. There's still going to be RNG
Sure.
having a massive impact. I know saying that RNG has a massive impact is like weird because there's so much RNG in
Yeah.
Dota already, but increasing it, I don't think that's the right way to go. And that would be like indirectly increasing the value of the runes by nerfing Bottle Fairy.
Fair enough. Fair enough. So you mentioned Han multiple times over. What are your feelings about Han now? Is it something that you kind of miss some aspects of it, or is it just kind of focusing on the here and now?
No, I don't really give it a second thought. I've last time I saw the Han match, like I saw a Han match 2 months ago. I think I went in and saw VOD, and then before that it was like a year ago almost, or 9 months or something. So yeah, it's not something I look at, and I don't really think that the game is nice to play, nor is it as fun to watch as Dota. I think Dota is like a really, really exciting and interesting game, whereas HON is a lesser version. But yeah, I mean, it had its upsides. The engine was something new and exciting and stuff, but yeah, I do prefer Dota way more.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. So moving on into looking at kind of what the team is doing as a whole, I kind of wanted to hit on one thing actually, just referencing your previous matches before we go into future stuff. That situation with Night Stalker, where they kept on picking you off over and over and over, they kept on committing lassos and stuff like that to you. Do you feel that was a little bit of an overcommitment by Empire to put that much pressure out on you? And do you think you should have played differently against it? Should you have played more passively based on the fact that they just were kind of gung-ho about bringing you down?
Well, the whole thing about that is, of course, you can get caught out of position, and there's some heroes like they would never commit a lasso and a puck ulti to as one of our support heroes. But that they caught me was obviously not the best case scenario for us, but blowing both spells over and over again on us, not on us, but on me, on playing Night Stalker, didn't mean that Lone Druid and Juggernaut had so much free space. Not only could we go for towers afterwards if they blew both ultimates on, like the puck ultimate is something you'd rather want than to hit more people as well. But after that, we could take towers, but they could also stay out and farm. I know Lone Druid could stay almost like in their forest farming, having those two spells down. So I'm not really sure if I would have used both on Night Stalker, but like it all depends. If they would have used that, if they had a creep wave near a tower and could continue to pressure the tower right afterwards, then maybe they would have used the spells better. But yeah, you're right when you're saying that they might have overcommitted a bit to using what's it called? Yeah, all those spells on me all the time. I did bitch a lot on our what's it called, Raycon, but it did leave so much more space for it, and that's a good thing to have two carries next to a hero that they would like to blow spells on. Like we had two carries and they got so much space, and carries with gold, yeah, you know how it goes.
Of course. Yeah. It sounds like it would have been kind of frustrating, that repeatedly happening over and over again, but as a result...
I just wanted my BKB, you know? I just wanted my BKB, but they wouldn't let me.
Exactly. But nevertheless, while you weren't finding your BKB, Arrow is fighting a Sanjin Yasha, Radiance, and Lincolns, and all this other stuff. It's just ridiculous. What do you think about that jug build, by the way?
I was going to say, it's actually not that bad. It used to be a normal thing in... I don't know if you ever hit Dota, but it used to be a normal thing in HON to go blink on the Juggernaut in HON, just for positioning purposes and getting in range for ultimates. Like suddenly, whenever Juggernaut has ultimate up, you have to really worry. Like you cannot just be in ultimate range. You cannot be in blink range of him. So it's not a bad item at all. But the Radiance pickup I actually really liked because it makes Puck and Bat's game so much harder, and I always wonder what items to make. If I wouldn't have, like, he made a Radiance in his position. If I was playing in his position right there, I would have probably made a Basher. But Radiance is not that far off near being as good. Like, not at all.
Yeah, I mean, he only got it 29 minutes, but like you said, it made that impact where Puck and Batrider had to really be careful about how they committed to things. And then about the same time, we saw K up his Blink Dagger on the Earthshaker, and suddenly you try to go in against that without your Blink, no chance. So it was solid. It definitely worked out. But of course, like you said, it was rather frustrating for you by yourself.
Yeah. I saw it was going good, so obviously I wouldn't say that like I was losing the game or anything by getting caught out or anything. But they're a really good team at doing the whole like if you know Empire, they play really well when they try to play aggressive, and the whole smoke gangs usually almost always work out for them. So I don't really feel bad for getting caught out or anything like that. But yeah, just if they would have found just Juggernaut once or twice before the Aegis, then the game might have turned out differently. But but I was there trying to farm BKB, and they were there to stop me.
Sure enough. Alrighty then. So as I was saying, kind of moving on into other stuff about the team as a whole. I mean, guys just came back from Star Ladder, and that was an interesting experience for you guys there. You want to have any comments on how that all went?
I mean, we're pretty satisfied with. Obviously, would have liked to win. Any team would have liked to win. We were satisfied getting a second, and I got what I wanted from that trip. Like, it was a great deal of fun, and we stayed at the same places we did last time, so we felt a bit more comfortable. At least I did, and it was a great trip. It was a really fun trip, and unlike last time, we actually had games to play every day. Like, I don't know if you realize, but the whole tournament schedule format stretches over, I think it's 3 or 4 days of games. So if you get knocked out early, like down to loser bracket, and then second day you lose in the loser bracket, then you have a lot of days where you don't do anything if you don't live in the city or nearby. So yeah, it was nice to actually play all days and have something to do and something to wake up to. But it was a great trip for us, and at least for me. A great deal of fun, and very happy with second place.
Yeah, definitely can't complain about that too much, especially coming out of the losers bracket there and just kind of slocking it to Virtus Pro. Do you guys have any idea what's up with NS and your little rivalry there?
Well, you didn't seem upset, so I don't know if there's anything left to say. I mean, we won on LAN.
There you go.
Nah, there's no, I don't know. I don't have any hard feelings against him.
Sure.
I don't know what he thinks, but yeah.
So one thing the chat has asked 8 times over is what's up with that massage? I don't really know how to phrase that question differently, so you could just take that one.
I've definitely seen it.
Yeah, definitely.
That's good. I don't know. I mean,
and the brazzers, the icons, and the romance music, YouTube clips, all that stuff.
Oh, it was so funny when I was on stage with him, because I was just, I was giving a back rub. He was feeling sore. That's what teammates do. Suddenly the crowd is starts cheering and laughing, and I look out and I'm like, fuck yeah, that's me. Then I look up and I see the big screen, and I'm like, oh yeah.
Oh.
It was great. I think it was. Yeah, I don't mind giving. I mean, it's just a massage. You don't have to be mad.
Seriously. Wow. Well then, yeah, no, I didn't know how to phrase that question, but yeah, you pretty much broke that down for us. That was, I mean, it's nothing. It's just massage, like you said.
Massage.
But internet takes it away as usual.
We saw the picture after the match. We went into a match, and then right after, the Brazos picture was already up. So I saw it, and oh god, it was so great. So funny.
Nice. So other than that, Star Ladder, of course, did pretty well. Other events, you've been pretty active here. Of course, you're still, with this win, slotting yourself for a playoff position in the Premier League, which is great for you guys to have a shot at that prize pool you guys have been working towards for quite a long time there. But some of your fans are worried you might be losing a little bit of steam, just kind of running out of gas there, as far as your aggression levels and your just general activity there. Would you say some of that, would you agree with them at all? And would you say anything of that has to do with how often you're practicing as 5?
We're obviously not we're not familiar playing as 5 as we could have been. Before Fly left to Italy to do his boot camping with Krav Maga and stuff, we had a time period where we were really on top of the game, and we were so comfortable playing, and it felt really good. Now there's always like some uncertainty going up against some teams because they adapted differently to last time you played them, and you have to kind of do the same, but you haven't changed as much since you haven't really been practicing. So they kind of know your style, you kind of don't know their style. So it's yeah, it's not as good as it could have been, but there's something to it with like yeah, not being as good as maybe we were, but we're still learning new stuff all the time, and the whole switching up stuff with roles and stuff. I mean, it just makes us more versatile, I think. So I mean, we've been called one of the harder teams to read, and I only think that's increasing. I only think that we're getting harder to read rather than getting easier to read. So I really like that we have that going for us. I think that's one of the most important things to have is the surprise factor when you play, because that's what we rely on a lot when we go into a draft or something, thinking that we know what the enemy's going to do.
Do you think that there will ever be a time where you guys get kind of pinned down like a butterfly on the board, where you're pretty much they figure you out, they dissect your strategies, and you don't really have anything new to bring to the table? Is there ever going to be a time where Fnatic is, transparent in what they intend to do?
I hope we never get to that point. It feels like that against some teams that we play, that they play the same thing all the time. You know what they're going to play before you even start the game. I don't hope we're ever going to get to that. I don't think we're ever going to get to that. And, can only try my best to never become, we can only try our best to never become, that obvious of a team. Because it's not something you want to be. Like, to be number one, you can't be running the same style all the time.
Yeah.
There's just no way. You want to know all the different play styles, strategies, and options you have. The more options you have, the more you can do, and the more you know about what you can do, the more you can, own the enemy on the draft and on the lanes. So it's so much to do about experience and having played a lot of competitive.
Gotcha. So yeah, I mean, obviously that'll show itself as time moves forward. But yeah, you guys want to stay on top, and hopefully you guys have the innovation to be able to accomplish that. Do you feel in its current build, in the current map, the current patch, whatever you want to call it, that you can do a lot with this current setup as far as the Dota metagame and what's going on with the heroes individually? Do you feel it's dynamic enough that you don't have to stick with just 2 or 3 different strategies?
Yeah, I do feel like the meta is still gonna change at least 1 or 2 more times before, like, even if there comes a new patch, like in the next near future. Like right now, the meta changed quite a bit to around Puck and Bat and heroes like that faded a bit off from the mag and stuff. But I do think that there's some things that's gonna stick until it's changed. Heroes like Wisp, but it's not played in Asia, so you never know if it's just the meta, and might not just be the hero. Like, it might just be the way that people approach the hero. But I definitely think there's a lot of things that could be run which aren't being run. But there's also some things that's more rarely won. But I like the way the game is at the moment. Very, very versatile. So many different strategies you can run, and there's just some things you always gotta keep in mind. But I definitely think there's gonna be some surprises coming up in some matches. I don't think people have seen it all, not nearly.
Sure. So some big surprises coming in store for the viewers. That'll be cool to see. A couple of dynamic drafts recently. I mean, you just played up against a Mirana on Blue Your Brain going offlane there. You guys didn't even seem to care about detection. Like, you bought a gem before you bought more than 2 packs of sentries.
That was bad by us, though. That was a mistake by us. That was, again, having to stand-ins, not to blame them or anything, but that's something you don't. You go into a game as a team, that happens to you once, and then next time you do it, you set the lines of who buys what and so on. And that was just a communication error. So. But that was a mistake to not have detection, because there were times where we could have had way better fights.
Yeah, it's like, oh no, it's just Fly's job. Just put it on the back burner there. But with stand-ins, you gotta put it forward and obviously stay on top of those things. But other than that, you're talking about different heroes. Do you think I've seen Mirana pick 2 or 3 times in the past 4 or 5 days. Do you think that that's something that could be used more effectively in the competitive meta?
Not the way that they did it, personally. I never liked Mirana as a farmer. But I do think that there's potential in the arrow, and well, leap brings quite a bit, but that would be the main two spells. And then now the ulti after the mana buff, I think is really powerful. Forces the enemy to spend a lot of gold and be very wary all the time. If you use it aggressively once or twice, you're gonna be playing differently the entire game because yeah, you don't, if you can't see anyone, then they might be on top of you and stuff like that. So I definitely think the hero has potential, but I would never put it as a farmer, I think.
Okay. Fair enough, fair enough. Well, these questions keep on seeming to coming. I don't think there's really much of an end to them. So honestly, whenever you're feeling a bit tired or just want to end it up, that's no problem at all for us. We've had plenty of time on this interview here. So is there any other topic that you'd specifically like to hit up?
No, not really. Not what I can think of right now.
Sure enough. I mean, people, nah. All this stuff, like a lot of it is it's okay, but I don't know. It's just like
okay.
it's it's the internet. It starts diluting itself until these questions are like, yeah, they're relevant, but
do you even lift?
yeah, there you go. Yeah, do you though? Do you?
Of course I do. I always lift.
Okay. Well, that's it. That's once we get to the do you even lift question in the interview, I think it's kind of played itself out there. So I'm gonna let you go, but before you go, do you want to give any shoutouts?
Shout out to my Magnus, shout out to Rat Dota, shout out to Fnatic, shout out to my team, and shout out to Kay and Cinderin for standing in today. Couldn't have done it without you.
Cool.
Yep.
Well, congratulations on your 2-0 victory versus Empire. Hopefully that feels good, and we'll be seeing you guys in the playoffs very, very shortly. So that'll be on the 26th is when that starts up, and yeah, this was your last game in the Season 4 season matches of the Premier League. So awesome to see you guys hit your stride, especially in that second game, the late game there. So really, really cool games, and congrats on that. Good luck in your future stuff.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Indeed, indeed. See you, man.
See you, man.